Hi, everyone. Thank you for joining us today. I'm super excited for this session with Dan. If you've got any questions, please feel free to pop them in the Q&A channel, Q&A section, sorry. And in the meantime, please send through in the chat where you're tuning in from today. Thanks, Dan. You can take it away.
Yeah, thanks a lot. And with that in mind, anybody in the chat as well would love to hear who is currently investing in SEO and LinkedIn ad strategy, your kind of role within that as well. It'd be good to gauge in the audience, like who is actually taking these two channels seriously at the moment and your kind of role within both of those. But yeah, with that in mind, thanks for tuning into this community event, which I'm calling Find and Convert, which essentially encompasses a combined SEO and LinkedIn ads strategy. So this talk is going to start out quite methodical, talking about how these two different yet, let's face it, very complementary channels can work together. And then we'll get a little bit into the nitty-gritty tactics of making both channels work effectively. So hopefully by the end of this session, you'll be able to attract more of the right buyers to your website through SEO and also convert more too through your LinkedIn retargeting strategy. So obviously it's a bit rude to get started before I actually introduce myself. So quick overview. I'm Dan Stilgo, marketing manager at Blend. Blend are a HubSpot website agency and also a demand generation agency. So we specialize in creating websites on HubSpot CMS and also executing demand generation strategies for a range of B2B companies. It's a really interesting role actually, because I get the opportunity to experiment with a lot of different tactics and strategies in B2B, but also work closely with our strategy team who obviously work with a range of businesses. So we can kind of complement each other and discover what's working best holistically in B2B marketing and demand generation. So yeah, it's a really cool role, which I'm proud to be in. So as well, one of the things that I pride myself most on when it comes to B2B marketing is finding the channels, tactics, and strategies that you can rely on consistently to generate pipeline and revenue and do so in a sustainable way. And that's what I think we have within SEO and LinkedIn retargeting. And essentially, that's why I'm bringing that to you today. So let's dive in. What are we actually running through today? So firstly, I'm going to talk about how SEO and LinkedIn ads actually fit together in, that puzzle format. And then we'll dive into both channels individually. So how do you get the most out of SEO right now? How do you actually set up an effective LinkedIn retargeting strategy? Then we'll actually look at how you measure those effectively from a commercial aspect. Then we'll have some time at the end for Q&A. So if you pop any questions as we go through into the Q&A section, I'll pick those up at the end because there's a lot to get through and I will be speeding through this, so apologies for that. But yeah, just want to try and pack in as much insight as possible. So firstly, let's cover how these channels actually work together. So you're all probably aware of this concept of the 95-5 rule. I think LinkedIn brought out a graphic maybe a few years ago around this, but it's a common concept now within B2B marketing, where you have 95% of your market who are not yet in market to buy, and then the rest of your market are actively looking for a solution. So we know that within your market, the 5% who are actively looking for a solution are likely using Google and other search engines in order to find the solution to their problem and, evaluate it ultimately, which then guides them to your website. So just looking at that, you might think, well, hang on, like, why would I focus so much effort on a channel that is only impacting 5% of the market? Let's face it, though, as well, like 5% of the market in lots of industries and categories is a huge proportion of the market. And if you can capture more of that demand that's in market to buy, then you might also benefit from a lower cost per acquisition of those. So worth bearing that in mind as well. But the thing I wanted to get at here is that whilst you have that 5% of the market that are currently looking for a solution, and you've got the 95% that are not currently in market for a solution, you've got a bit of an overlap here of this proportion of the market that are problem aware. So whilst they aren't specifically in market and looking for a solution, they are aware that they've got this pain in the business, and they are searching for ways to alleviate that pain. And ultimately, they are going to search in order to understand how to do that. So we can forget about the unaware and not in market proportion of your audience. They are never going to use search like in order to educate themselves, because they have nothing to search for to educate themselves on. But right now, if you now look at this compared to the original slide, you might have doubled or even more the market available to you within search. So all of a sudden, you're able to capture way more demand through Google and drive a huge proportion of traffic to your website that you might not have thought was possible before. So it's important to understand how this, how the broader scale of search actually works and is available to us. But even with that in mind, so we can drive all of the website traffic that we like to our site. But even with that in mind, most website visitors aren't converting on their first visit. And actually, one source identified that 96% of website visitors don't convert to a sale or a lead. And actually, what we found, because when we're measuring effectiveness of websites, we look at website to high intent lead. And usually about 99% actually of website visitors aren't converting into a high intent lead. So you've got a humongous drop off of traffic that simply aren't converting on your website. And how do you then take more of that drop off and ultimately convert more of those? Because they've shown some intent by Googling a particular query and coming onto your website. And that's where LinkedIn retargeting comes in order to recoup a lot of that lost traffic, stay in front of them with core messaging, educate them further about your offering, about the category, and ultimately bring them back onto your website to convert them later on. So that's how this all fits together. And now we understand that, let's dive into the actual particular channels themselves, give some tips and strategies on how to make them both work effectively, whilst I also take a drink because we're going fast. Okay, so the first thing I wanted to show here is the scale of things when it comes to B2B SEO. There are a lot of things that go into making B2B SEO strategies work and making them effective, you know, all the way from keyword research to domain reputation, keyword volumes, your website, the way it performs, the user experience. All of this goes into how you rank, the traffic you generate on your website, and ultimately the conversions that you get off the back of it. But one thing remains consistent within SEO, and it's within the word, really. It's about search. It's about understanding how your buyers search, understanding the words that they use within search. Because let's face it, Google is a search engine. You know, Bing is a search engine. These only exist because buyers are searching for things. And us as marketers ultimately need to understand what they're searching for, the types of phrases, keywords, and things that they're typing into Google in order to ensure that our website appears for those particular things. With that in mind, fortunately, there are categories and ways available to us to identify the types of searches that buyers are making and enabling us to pair up those types of searches, those different intents, with different content on our website in order to say, okay, if a buyer searches for this particular thing, we want to create this type of content in order to capture them inside a search effectively. So what you can see on the screen here is essentially the different types of keywords available to us as marketers and the categories within those, essentially. So firstly, we've got informational keywords. These are, you know, top of funnel keywords that buyers are using to really start to explore a particular topic. So in this example, I'm using project management. So how to run a project effectively. buyer might have a particular pain with a project and they want some advice from, a particular person or company on what they can do to run it more effectively. Now, obviously, the types of content that's going to work here are blogging, resources, pillar pages that align themselves to a particular format to serve and answer that question. Kind of goes back to Marcus Sheridan's book on They Ask, You Answer. That's what you're doing here, really. You're educating your market on that. It's important to note here, though, you can create all the informational content that you like, blogs, resources, pillar pages, but that first interaction with your brand when they first come onto your website, the actual probability they're going to convert into a high intent lead is really low. And ultimately, within SEO, the main goal is to generate high intent leads through the website that convert into pipeline and revenue. And just from informational keywords and content, that is not going to happen. Informational content can have other benefits, huge benefits, which we'll talk about in a moment. But yeah, it's not going to drive huge amounts of high intent leads. Down from that, we've got a huge step change into commercial keywords. So when it comes to these and identifying these, it's all about the suffixes. So within the project management category and topic, adding the suffix of like software or platform or solution will then give you that commercial keyword. And you want to be targeting those on your product page, your service page, or even your home page. Lots of businesses like rule out their home page as a potential for targeting a commercial keyword. But if you whack a commercial keyword on there and strategically integrate it into the content and the page, you will find that your homepage can quite easily outrank other pages on your website for a commercial keyword. And the probability of somebody converting into a high intent lead after using one of these is much, much higher given their intent. They've already done some research and they're probably like in the shopping stage. They're not maybe ready to convert yet. That's why I've got medium to high here. They're probably evaluating solutions. But if they come onto your website and they see that your software matches their criteria, their requirements exactly, then you are putting yourselves in a fantastic position to capture that demand from search straight away, convert them into a high intent lead that will ultimately go on to convert to pipeline and revenue at a much higher rate. Then we've got transactional keywords, which I'll kind of gloss over because these are essentially used in B2C a lot of the time. It's rare in a B2B scenario that people are actually going to type in buy project management software because ultimately they're going to be using those commercial keywords, finding the brands that they like and potentially searching navigationally afterwards. Because, let's face it, B2B purchases aren't impulsive. So buyers need to educate themselves a lot more further. So if you work in manufacturing or something, then there may be scenarios where people are putting buy, product name in there. And you want to be optimizing product and service pages in order to rank for those. Navigational keywords is the next thing along. And in this scenario, I've got Asana in there, which is a project management software. What I wanted to note on here, though, is that a lot of the navigational traffic that you bring in through search is probably not a direct correlation of your SEO efforts. Okay, people may be using your informational content and commercial content to come onto your website, potentially searching for you navigationally afterwards. But the chances are a lot of the demand that you're creating through social and events and other places are probably leading people to search for your exact brand name on Google. So it's worth bearing that in mind and understanding that SEO can have an impact here and drive these, really high intent buyers to your website. But ultimately, SEO's piece of the pie is more about getting those informational and commercial type visitors onto your website. So the reason that I wanted to bring all of that up is because once you understand what your buyers are searching for, and if you can cover every single segment of kind of keyword and different intent that they might be using within Google, you're putting yourself in the best position possible to capture as much demand possible in your market. If you cover all of these things, then ultimately, you're in a really good position to dominate search for your category. The Trouble is that a lot of businesses face is, even if you have all of this content in place, so you've got your pillar pages for the informational keywords, your blogging, you've got resources, all targeting and informational keywords, bringing in great traffic to the website. There often seems to be a lack of connection between the informational section of your website and the commercial section of your website. So whilst you are bringing in lots of great traffic, you're not actually giving yourself the benefit of that from a commercial standpoint. And as I mentioned before, ultimately, the main goal of SEO is to bring in buyers, have people come from Google and convert into pipeline and revenue. So by having this gap here, you're not really doing yourself any favors. So if you are creating content right now or thinking about creating content, and you've got these pillar pages, these blogs, these resources in place, having a strategic linking strategy in place will allow you to maximize your overall impact of search, of SEO, in multiple different ways, really. So what you can see here, the blue arrows are identifying ways you should cross-link. So with all of your informational content, you want to be linking that together across the board, really, to signal to Google that for this particular topic, maybe it's project management, we have authority on the subject, significant authority on the subject, and we're covering it in all of these different ways within all of these different content types. But what many businesses miss out on, and most that we look at, to be honest, is the linking back to your homepage and product pages and service pages for those commercial keywords. This is honestly one of the biggest gaps that businesses have right now, because they're driving so much great traffic to informational content and just not using it to benefit themselves commercially. So in all of your blogs, in all of your pillar pages around a particular topic, let's take project management as an example. If I have a blog on how to manage a project more effectively, I want to make sure that within that blog, I'm referencing project management software, and I have an exact match on that phrase, internal link back to a product page that's optimized for that. And if you do that for, hundreds of content pieces potentially, you're driving so many signals back to Google that your commercial page is relevant for that commercial keyword, and you'll appear, higher up in Google for it. It really is as simple as that. Create great content that brings people to your website from an informational standpoint. Internally link that back to commercial pages that are already optimized for those commercial keywords as well. And all of a sudden, you're starting to dominate in more areas of those different keyword intents that we just looked at. So with that in mind, that is probably one of the biggest, from a content creation standpoint, that's probably one of the biggest opportunities that businesses have right now in order to use SEO more effectively. But other than that, just some quick things, because, time sensitive. Big things and opportunities right now that businesses can do for better SEO opportunity. One is to use more clear buyer language on your website instead of vague straplines. Something like advance, accelerate, succeed on your homepage or product page might sound great from a brand point of view, but your buyers don't care about it. Your buyers don't use that kind of language when they're searching for a particular solution in Google. They just simply don't. Feel free to use that elsewhere on the website. That's relevant. But if you use that clear buyer language, so instead of, succeed, accelerate, you use project management software, the buyer language that explains your product, then all of a sudden you've got a website that's become more clear, like in terms of what you do to your buyer, and you're enhancing your search visibility just by using the language that your buyers already use. Because by using the language, you naturally incorporate the keyword anyway, because buyers tend to all use similar terms and phrases when searching for something. Similarly, on products and service pages, instead of using your own unique brand product name, so for project management, let's say it's the Stilgo 7000 tool, instead of using that in my navigational link and for the product page, H1 and title and everything, just use the commercial keyword that your buyer's using for. It really is as simple as that. Feel free to use the product name elsewhere, but by prioritizing the commercial keyword, again, you're going to give yourself a better chance of appearing for that inside of Google. And then you're able to link your informational content back to that and have this compounding impact within search, showing all the right signals to Google that you've got topical authority and commercial authority on these things. We spoke about exact match internal linking. And the last one, this might be a little bit controversial because I've heard mixed things on this. You might have heard people say, like, when it comes to blogging and content creation on your website, just write about what you think your buyers care about. You know, if you want to write about it, you write about it. And whilst that can be true, if you know there's a particular trend in the market, or you've heard from buyers firsthand that there's a particular pain point, go ahead, blog about it. But most of your blogging efforts and the success that you get from blogging will come from the blogs that are targeted at keywords that have volume associated to them and are driving traffic to your website. Because ultimately, then Google are going to value that more as a particular content piece and give more equity to the links inside that back to your commercial pages and so on. So feel free to blog about some topics that you think your buyers might care about, but ultimately, you know, keep it back to basics, right? And blog on things that actually have volume attached to them. Well, I suppose we should address the elephant in the room as well, right? Which is AI. I wasn't going to put this in originally, but I thought I probably should because AI and Google Gemini has just, had a sudden surge in almost all informational search results that I'm finding now. And, you've probably all found the same too. There's no hiding AI's impact on search at all anymore. But I do think, to comfort the marketers in the room, there is still huge runway ahead of us and huge opportunity for SEO within marketing. So, firstly, AI snippets like this, like you can see on the screen, is predominantly just appearing for informational searches right now. And actually, it's almost always, well, it is linking to particular results below, whether that be usually the top 10 results, but also other results I've seen as well. And it's surfacing those websites more prominently in the search result as well. Like you can see here on the right hand side, all of a sudden, these search results have been elevated in search. So if this searcher wants to dig more into this topic, all of a sudden you need to be thinking about, hang on, how do I actually get featured within AI rather than how do I get first in Google? How do I actually get featured first in AI? And the first step to doing that is to create great content that the AI actually wants to reference. I'm sure some playbook will come out soon about how to exactly do it. But yeah, it's still surfacing websites within its answer that are there to link to, right? So you need to find a way to be part of that and almost beat AI and keep driving traffic to your website. And then we've got the piece around supporting commercial pages and commercial content on your website. You still need to be creating content consistently and informational content that's driving traffic in order to support your commercial pages and those being found for commercial keywords where the AI overview isn't really present right now. And I don't think it will ever have the same impact and effect due to commercial keywords basically leading to buyers evaluating and researching products further, whereas informational keywords is quite, top of funnel and quite easy to answer a question. So you still need all of that content in place to rank for those commercial keywords. I've heard them called money keywords as well, which I quite like, because essentially those are the ones that are going to bring in-market buyers onto your website and give you the greatest probability of converting those into pipeline and revenue. And again, that is the goal, right? So that's the elephant done. But obviously, AI is going to take a proportion of traffic. We don't quite know how big that proportion is going to be yet, But let's say it does take, a good 10-20% of the traffic to your website. That's only going to make the traffic that you are getting even more valuable. And, as we showed at the start, 96% of your visitors don't convert. So how can you actually convert more of that lost traffic? And that's where LinkedIn retargeting comes in. And now I'm going to have another drink. Whew. Right, we're doing well. We're doing well. Okay. So yeah, that's where LinkedIn retargeting comes in order to recoup a lot of that lost traffic and convert more, essentially, convert more of your buyers. So I really like LinkedIn retargeting ads. It's my favorite platform for any advertising when it comes to B2B, and retargeting ads are also my favorite kind of ad to run. One, because LinkedIn is a proven B2B marketing channel for most businesses. Like, they've identified it as an effective social channel to reach their audience with particular content or messages and communicate with them, essentially. And also, by using retargeting ads, you're communicating and serving ads to a warm audience who have already heard of your brand, maybe have shown a bit of intent in the market as well. And they're also quite cost effective, retargeting ads, because the audience size are generally smaller because only a proportion of your market are coming to your website, right? So the cost to reach the total audience is much lower. And on top of that audience, you can make it even smaller and refine it even further. Because as we know, LinkedIn have really great targeting parameters. So we can say, even though we've got a big audience of website visitors here from the last 90 days, let's refine it further, which we'll talk about now, actually. So what I wanted to give you to take away today is a top level LinkedIn retargeting process that, if you don't have anything in place today, or you do, but you're thinking of refining it further, you can implement this straight away and basically take advantage of all of that SEO effort and the traffic that you're generating on your website and convert more of it, essentially. So where I like to start when it comes to the audience is to set up 90-day audiences to track how many your website visitors, company page viewers, and if you do have any cold ads running, feel free to add those into retargeting as well, like video ads at 75% views or whatever it may be. 90 days seems to be about the sweet spot. Any further, people have probably just forgotten about you. Any sooner, you're probably limiting your reach. Now, once you've got those audiences built and in place, you can actually set up your campaign audience and refine it even further. This is such an essential step. So once you've got your audience in place, make sure that for retargeting, you're actually refining that in terms of the locations that you can actually work with, any particular company sizes or functions or industries that you can actually target. Because don't forget, every single person that sees your ad or clicks on your ad, depending on the objective, is costing you money. So you only want to serve these ads to people that you can actually work with. Essentially, your ICP goes back to basics. So once you've got that audience in place, the next thing to focus on, of course, is what you're actually going to show them in the feed. So I've split this out by the actual ad format and the topic within that itself. So firstly, we've got text ads. And not many people know what text ads are or have heard of them. It's kind of a strange thing that lurks in LinkedIn. Maybe they'll get rid of it one day. I don't know, but it's been around kind of forever. They're similar to spotlight ads in that they just appear on desktop on this right-hand side section here. And it's essentially just a small circle image, usually a logo, followed by a message. The great thing with these is that, this is going to sound strange, but nobody ever clicks them. And this sounds really strange, but if you've got a objective of website visitors, you're essentially paying for free impressions on these ads, because although you're running them and loads of people are seeing them, not many people are clicking them. And in my mind, if I can get my logo and a particular message in front of an audience that's already been on my website, already familiar with my brand and my logo and my message, and distribute that in front of them every time they open LinkedIn, that's a win-win, even if they don't click on it. And if I'm not paying for it, that's even better. The next ad type I've got in here are video ads. So a few different formats and styles here. So I'd always lead now on LinkedIn retargeting with educational type content, whether it be in a branded format or a more authentic style, because ultimately people are starting to use LinkedIn more to consume educational style content, and they're almost seeking it out inside of the platform. So I'll probably say lead with that when it comes to LinkedIn ads, and it's usually quite easy to create from a marketing standpoint. Then, if you do have work and results and case studies and things like that, go ahead. Like, they are fantastic at building trust and affinity with your audience. Because, again, we need to remember at which stage these buyers are that we're serving these ads to. They're already problem aware, at least, maybe a market for a solution. So we need to pair up the particular content that we're serving in the ads with where they're at in their journey. And that goes for image ads as well. So, okay, we might serve some educational content here. In this case, 20 exceptional examples of HubSpot websites, but I'm not going to serve them an ad, what is a website, because they've educated themselves that they probably need a new website or they've got a problem with it. So I'm going to show them some examples. It's still a soft touch blog, but it matches the intent of the audience. Then we've got results. Brand recall is an interesting one. Just staying in front of somebody with your particular message or brand can be quite powerful as well, potentially if they're evaluating different solutions. And then we've got, this work here, which is basically building trust with our audience to say, look, we can create great websites that not only look great, but they also perform great as well. So again, what we're trying to do here is just build more trust with our audience and bring them back onto the website to convert them again. One thing that I wanted to share with you, which we found really interesting, is this thing around authentic style ads. And we found that authentic screenshot style ads can get up to a 250% higher click-through rate. And obviously that percentage seems absolutely insane, right? But we're talking about CTRs that are like less than 1.5% here. So obviously the jump's going to be huge. But this is from our actual campaigns. And what I mean by authentic screenshot ads are these kind of things here where you've had customers actually reference you. Maybe they've commented on a LinkedIn post or given you a review on G2 or Capterra, wherever it may be. Screenshot that in its most raw, authentic format, no design at all, and publish that as a ad and distribute it to your audience within their feed. And what you'll find is in most cases, that will outperform any styled version of it because it builds more trust, it looks more authentic, and buyers will kind of associate that with a particular, they'll realize that it's a genuine review rather than you just trying to fake it. And what we've even got here in this one on the left, middle left, is actually where our websites were referenced in HubSpot, and we just direct them there because again, it's an authentic view of our work being showcased. We're not trying to pretend here like we do good stuff. So yeah, try out these screenshots because they're working really, really well at the moment. And then obviously the last thing that you need to do is to direct them to somewhere. So that is all going back to your website where the main aim here is to convert them into high intent conversions. You've captured all that great traffic through search. We're serving them content to push them further down the funnel, build trust, build affinity, get them back onto the website and get more conversions off the back of it. So with that all in place, how do you actually measure the effectiveness of these two things? One thing I wanted to mention here is that when it comes to SEO and LinkedIn, there are so many metrics we can look at. You've got website traffic, keyword positions. From LinkedIn, you've got impressions, CTR, CPAs, like all of these different kind of metrics that are fantastic to use and inform the strategy and the tweaks that we can make in these channels. But ultimately, the commercial outcomes that you get from these particular channels are going to drive the decision to invest more budget in there, pull the budget out of there, actually make the big picture thinking possible. So that's what I think you need to focus on most when it comes to measuring these channels. So the first thing that I'd recommend you look at is the website to high intent lead conversion rate. So taking the number of website sessions that you get and essentially dividing them by the count of high intent conversions that you get. Because this is going to show you if you're actually driving good quality traffic to your website. Okay, it's going to reflect your website's ability to do that. But if you're driving the right traffic through SEO, bringing it back through LinkedIn ads, then your website to high intent lead conversion rate should be going up. The next thing to look at is self-reported attribution. And I could probably talk about this for an hour, but I've got maybe about a minute to get through this. So if you haven't heard of it, just Google self-reported attribution. I think we rank first. So there you go. There's SEO performing well for you. But really quickly, it's essentially a field on your high intent form on the website which says, how did you hear about us? So you're asking buyers, how did you first hear about our brand before you ultimately converted on this form? And I've heard people say that even from a Google perspective, you shouldn't need this. You don't need this to measure demand capture. But actually, that's not true, because what you can see here is within these two self-reported attribution entries, they said they heard about us through Google. But actually, our software attribution says they came through direct traffic. So, there are a whole host of reasons why that might say direct traffic, but ultimately it's wrong. That doesn't show us truly that Google was the most effective channel at getting those people onto our website. So once you have self-reported attribution in place and you've got the categories set up, you can then see how Google, that's what we're measuring here, and how your other channels are effectively driving high intent leads onto your website. And then you can start to split that out even further by saying, okay, well, how many are converting into pipeline and revenue as well? And, looking at that from a Google lens to understand the impact of SEO, and also, by your other channels as well to look at marketing more holistically. So yeah, check out self-reported attribution if you don't have it right now. The last thing I want to talk about in terms of measurement is LinkedIn conversion tracking. If you are running LinkedIn ads right now and don't have conversion tracking set up, please go and set it up right now. It is almost impossible to measure the effectiveness of LinkedIn retargeting ads without conversion tracking in place, because self-reported attribution is not going to help you here, because ultimately how they heard about you, how they came to your website was not LinkedIn. Okay, maybe it might have been LinkedIn if they, if they heard about you through a cold ad or a particular profile on LinkedIn. But in this scenario, they've come to your website through SEO and Google. So that's never going to reveal that LinkedIn was good. And conversion tracking is essentially going to enable you to see how many times were your ads seen in the feed, and then from that, how many people went on to convert on your website. So here, for example, you can see in our video ads that there were 32 conversions in this particular time frame. So we had 5 people who actually clicked on our ad and then went on to convert on the website. But we actually just had 27 who viewed our video in the feed and then went on to convert as well. They didn't even click the ad. We know people like in-feed content. They just viewed it and then went on later, I think within the next 7 days we have set up, and then converted. So yeah, definitely go ahead and set that up. So that's how you measure it. And ultimately, if you get all of those things right, you should be able to measure it, for one. And that's how you attract and convert more of your buyers through Google and using LinkedIn to retarget and convert those. So, did we have any questions to run through? Okay, I can see some in here. Okay, Chris, some B2B industries. Okay, thank you for that. Bringing it on screen. Some B2B industries often lack high volume searches. How do we overcome this? Well, you can't really, unless you create a load of demand for that particular category. So if you do lack high volume searches and your industry, doesn't can't benefit from SEO particularly, then the best thing to do is to, look at other channels potentially. Most businesses do have some kind of runway to work with when it comes to SEO. It's very rare that you're working in an industry that has absolutely no search volume whatsoever. There is usually some to work with there, but ultimately understand your audience, where they go to educate themselves on particular problems or solutions, and go there. You can almost always use LinkedIn retargeting. If your website traffic is there, I'd probably say if you've got like over 1,500 monthly visits, then retargeting is probably an option for you. But yeah, if your buyers aren't using search and you aren't creating the demand to make them use search, then you'll probably need to look at other channels. So I'm just finding the next one. Is there a particular one you want to bring on, Yifat, or shall I just go for the next one? Okay. You haven't mentioned LinkedIn lead gen forms. Do you not recommend it? Absolutely not. I would never recommend LinkedIn lead gen forms, to be quite frank and brutal on the topic. Ultimately, LinkedIn lead gen forms, you're paying what, like $50, $200 for a lead that's ultimately never going to convert into a buyer on your website. There's a whole host of reasons why I recommend not doing gated content, which lead gen forms essentially are in most cases. Buyers just particularly don't want to give up their contact details in exchange for a piece of content that they can probably consume elsewhere for free, ungated. And ultimately, if it is gated content in the lead gen form, I want to ungate that so I can ensure that more of my market and as many buyers as possible can consume our content and become educated by our brand as possible. So I'd rather just distribute that in feed and enable them to come onto our website, because we're optimizing for high intent conversions rather than any lead. And ultimately, they're costing a lot of money and they're really low intent. To exact match internal links on my blog post, is it enough to use informational keywords, or do I have to use a clickable link to my homepage somewhere inside the blog? Not sure I fully understand that question, so feel free to answer a follow-up, but I'll ask a follow-up, but I'll do my best. So I think you're asking, should you have a exact match commercial keyword link to your homepage inside the blog copy? I think so, yes. That's what I implement. And ultimately, if you're using your homepage to target a particular commercial keyword, then actually inserting that within the blog and linking that back to your homepage is the right thing to do, because the only other link you have back to your homepage is probably your logo, and that's not indicating much to Google because it doesn't have any text to read within that and associate with the link. So yeah, if you do want to link back to your homepage within the blog, it's absolutely a good thing to do. And I probably answered the last one already, given the rise of AI. So cool. Was there anything else? Shall I answer some of these questions in the chat, Ifat? I've got one.
Yeah, go ahead.
I've got 1 minute. I'll
No,
I'll do my best.
you can keep going, answer the questions.
Okay, cool. Right. Well, let me try and get through these then. What's the average frequency you like to maintain in the retargeting layer? Right. Funnily enough, can I exit out this tab? I actually took a slide out earlier because of time, and I had this in here. So, yeah, funny that you should ask that. Like, this isn't actually a queued question either. Trust me. So frequency and budget. Over 90 days, I would try and find a frequency of at least 10, because let's face it, one isn't enough. If you see an ad in the feed 30 times, then you're probably going to get a bit bored of it. So you need to align your budget and audience size to get that right frequency. If you have a huge audience, then you're going to need a huge budget in order to get a good frequency. So you might need to reduce both to hit the sweet spot. But yeah, 10 over 90 days tends to be a good amount to, get your ad in front of buyers in the sweet spot. What I'd also say here is the ad fatigue point is a good one to bring in. Like if you're getting a frequency of 10, you want to be varying that creative a little bit as well. Just having one ad in there is probably going to start to have a negative effect and the opposite effect on buyers, because if they're just seeing the same thing over and over again, they'll be like, oh my God, that thing again, scroll past it, report. Maybe not that extreme, but make sure if you've got a frequency of 10 that you've got, you know, between 5 and 10 variants. I'd be pushing 10 personally. Any free SEO tools that you can recommend? None that I've used recently. I'm sure Ahrefs and SEMrush have free versions of them. I think they do. Haven't used the free versions in ages. There's also a tool that I was checking out earlier. Bethany, I'll DM you actually, because it might be interesting for you, which is basically an AI overview checker, which scanned your website and the keywords that you wanted to have in there and looked at where AI results were present. So yeah, quite cool. I'll DM you that one. How long is your conversion window, and how do you best recommend setting them up on LinkedIn? So I think we have two conversions set up. I set these up a long time ago. I'll answer that other question in a sec. How long is your conversion window, and how do you best set them up? How do you best recommend setting them up on LinkedIn? So I think our conversion window varies. We have two conversions set up, which is a every campaign and a last campaign. So we look at if a particular campaign has driven the last touch before conversion, then we look at that over 7 days, I believe. This was a long time ago that I set these up. And then we look at if it's had a touch on every single campaign over 30 days. And we're basically tracking a website visit. So if somebody submits our high intent form, they're then redirected to a thank you page essentially. So we look at how many people have landed on that, on those particular conversions. Feel free to DM me on LinkedIn if that didn't answer it, great, and we can chat about that one. Yeah, presentation is sent out. When you say 10 average frequency, do you mean on a campaign or ad level? Campaign level, that would be probably too much for a particular ad. Can you send that AI tool publicly? Yeah, why not? I'll post on LinkedIn. How's that? I'll post about it on LinkedIn, and you can all check it out. All right.
Amazing. I think that's pretty much it. If once you send me the tool, I'll also post it in the community, so anyone can check it out there as well. That was amazing, Dan. Thank you so much, and thank you everyone who joined. I'll be sending out the recording tomorrow, so stay tuned.
Amazing. Thanks, everyone. Great to see you.